Good morning, everybody. It's Miss Casey. As you can see, I'm here outside. Again, this is because I live in a more rural area. There's not a lot of people around, so I feel comfortable going out in my yard. If you have a yard, this is going to be a fun activity for you too, because we're going to go wild for worms today.
So truthfully, all you need to go wild for worms today is a paper towel or maybe a damp cloth and some water to get it damp with. Here's some optional things you can also have: a magnifying glass, a poster of other creatures you might find around worms. This is for a worm bin, but I figure if I'm outside in the garden, I might also find some of these things like the beetle, maybe some fungus, maybe a roly-poly or a pill bug. I'm also going to bring a piece of paper and a pen to take notes, and my worm body parts card so I can try and see if I can find all of the worm body parts on my worm friend. So to look for some worms, I found a spot in my garden where I thought I might find some, and you can either use a little trowel or a shovel to dig them up. I'm just going to use a little stick that I found. You can also just use your hands. It's good to get your hands in the dirt sometimes. So I'm going to just start digging, and I'm going to dig slowly and carefully so that way if there are any worms, I don't accidentally hurt them. So I found my worm. It took about 5 minutes of searching. It is a little chilly this morning, so he's a little lethargic and chilly. But I found him, and I am going to capture him before he makes his way back into the soil. I'm picking up a worm, do it very gently. In fact, I'm going to try and go under him rather than wrap my fingers around him. I don't want to accidentally crush him. So I brought my worm back, he's right there, and I'm going to get this paper towel moist for him because worms have very moist skin, and it's not very good for them to get it dried out like they would get dried out if they were on a dry paper towel. So what I did there is I just got this paper towel damp, and I'm squeezing out some of the excess moisture because worms breathe through their skin, and actually if you get them too wet, they won't be able to breathe at all. That's why you see a lot of worms come out of the ground and onto the pavement after it rains. It's because the ground gets too wet and they come out of the ground so they can get a breath of air because their little wormholes get totally filled with water. So I'm going to set our new worm friend on the paper towel. I'm going to put him in the sun so we can see him very well. And there he is. Alright, oh, Wallace is what I'm going to name our worm. So we'll say name Wallace. So he's starting to get a little active. He's getting a little antsy. He's like, I want to get back in this soil. Well, Wallace, we'll let you go in 1 second. Let's take a look at you first. Ooh. So I took my magnifying glass out. I'm getting a really close look at Wallace here. He is a fast little guy. So, let's, what are we noticing here? I'm noticing that he looks very wet, very slimy. He's got tiny pieces of dirt stuck to him. I noticed that the part that's moving forward, I'm going to assume that's his head, because usually when things move around, they go head first. And I notice he starts by pushing he moves around by starting to push his head out forward, and then the rest of his body kind of scrunches up behind him. That's kind of a neat way of moving. Alright, so let's take a look at the worm body part cards and see if Wallace has each of these body parts. Alright, so the head, well, let's take a look. Again, I really think the part that he's reaching out forward first might be his head there. He is very fast right now. Next up, we have the hearts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Worms have 5 hearts. Wallace, is this true? Can you confirm? Oh, he's not in the talkative mood. He is in the escapee mood. Wallace, we'll let you go in just 1 second. Next up, we have the crop, followed by the gizzard. Ooh, those are some new words for me. I'm going to have to go look up what crop and gizzard mean. Quick pause, I looked it up. A crop is where a worm stores its food, and the gizzard is where a worm chews its food. Following up his gizzard, he has the intestine. Alright, let's take a look. Well, Wallace, I can't see much through your skin, buddy, but that's okay. I'm going to trust you have one. And then finally, the anus, which is the scientific way of saying a worm's bottom. that's where worms castings come out. So Wallace, you do a really important thing for us in the garden, is you eat up decaying organic matter, and it goes through your little body, through your crop and your gizzard and your intestine, and you produce castings, worm castings. That's a scientific nice way of saying worm poop. And makes for a really great thing in our soil, and our plants love it. So that's why worms are a garden friend. I feel like I would be doing Michigan a disservice if I didn't say that worms are actually not native to Michigan. They actually cause a lot of problems for Michigan soils because worms are so very good at bringing soil up from the bottom layers and mixing it with the top. And Michigan soils, and therefore all of the plants that live in Michigan soils, just aren't really used to that high degree of churning caused by earthworms. So it's actually caused a bit of a problem for Michigan forests. So little Wallace, love having you in the garden, but sure wish you weren't in our forests. So Wallace, if you would like to go and join your friends back in the soil, I will let you do so. Everybody wave goodbye to Wallace. He's been an outstanding participant today. Thank you, Wallace. And let's watch him as he makes his way back into the soil. So it looks like he's struggling a bit. I'm gonna just dig a little hole for him. Because I feel I'm responsible to help him get safely back into the soil, because I am the one who took him out. Bye, Wallace. As for these other worm friends, while I was digging around, I am actually surprised to say I did not find any. I don't know if that's because it's still early in the year in Michigan and perhaps not time for some of these little critters to come out. Or maybe because it's early in the morning and actually we had a little bit of a frost last night. Maybe they're all still burrowed somewhere before until it warms up.
So there we are. Thank you for going wild about worms with me today. Like I said, if you have a yard, make sure before going out it's an area where there's not too many other people around, because of course we have to be careful about maintaining physical distance from others at the moment. Or if you have some critters going around inside, you know, it's not everybody's dream to have a fruit fly in the kitchen, but unfortunately a lot of us do have fruit flies in the kitchen. You could also repeat the same steps with a fruit fly, you know, capture it in a jar, take a close look at it, write down your observations. I found that sitting down and taking the time to get to know another creature that many people find gross or yucky is a really great way of understanding it just a little bit better. And if you're kind of afraid or grossed out of those creatures, a really good way to kind of alleviate some of your discomfort with being with them. So again, thanks for going wild about worms with me. I would recommend listening to this great book called Yucky Worms. I'll leave a link in the description. It's another great resource for you to learn more about worms if you're interested in learning about worms, because as I said, they are such fantastic friends to have in the garden. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.